We've got another great story to share with you today, an inspiring journey into local government leadership, because that's what we do here on the HaltingWinter podcast. We tell the stories behind the titles, the unique paths into public service, and the moments that shape how these leaders show up, even when the work gets heavy. Every day, local government quietly makes modern life possible, and behind every service is a person doing work that often goes unseen. This is the HaltingWinter podcast, and I'm Seth Winterhalter. Every week, I have the pleasure of sitting down with local government leaders from across the country that remind us where government really lives, locally, doing the work that truly matters. This is the work that builds belonging. Before we hear today's conversation, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Tyler Technologies has been exclusively serving the public sector since 1998, partnering with cities and counties to make their work more manageable, more connected, and more effective. From smarter budgeting to artificial intelligence, Tyler equips local governments with software and solutions that help leaders serve with clarity, efficiency, and impact. You can explore a variety of free resources at tylertech.com/winter. That's tylertech.com/winter. And if today's conversation resonates with you, I want to invite you to check out the Municipal Leadership Development Circle. It's a global community of local government leaders who are committed to growing together, supporting one another, and leading well in the middle of municipal pressure. You can learn more about the MLDC at haltingwinter.com/MLDC. That's haltingwinter.com/MLDC. And now, let's turn to today's conversation. My guest on the podcast today is Lisa Garcia, the town clerk and deputy town manager in Florence, Arizona. Lisa, welcome to the podcast. This is going to be a fantastic conversation today.
I'm so happy to be here, so thank you for inviting me.
Well, it is a privilege, not only because you are an amazing person with an amazing story, but we are about to celebrate the 57th Annual Professional Municipal Clerks Week. So I thought there is no one better to feature on the podcast this specific week than you. You've been a town clerk for over 3 decades. Again, you must have started when you were 12. You were the 2021 Arizona Clerk of the Year, the former president of the Arizona Municipal Clerks Association, the immediate past president of the IIMC, that's the International Institute of Municipal Clerks, and you've been an honoree of America's 250 Public Service Champions. So and I'm sure that's only a blip of the radar of all that you've done. So I cannot wait to unpack just an amazing professional career. But before we do that, we got to do what we always do here on the HaltingWinter podcast. You got to take us back to the very beginning and tell us about where you were born and kind of the childhood that shaped you and led you on this amazing journey.
So I was actually born in Coos Bay, Oregon, and I had an entrepreneurial family. So my family owned little motels, and my childhood was spent being raised in the office of a little mom and pop hotel. It meant that at a very young age, we had to learn customer service. We had to understand that you needed your customers to come back. And we also had to understand to be quiet during the evening so that we could retain customers. When I got to be about probably around 10, my family moved over to Arizona, and we went from motels to owning a mobile home park. And my family actually relocated to Casa Grande, Arizona. And a great time. That was a very different experience where we were mainly a retirement community for snowbirds. And I ended up being raised with probably 200 grandma and grandpas to advise me, take care of me, and give me some of that good old-fashioned work knowledge and make sure that I might have been a Generation Xer, but I was definitely raised with a baby boomer mentality from all the people who helped raise me. And my parents they loved being entrepreneurs, and they got to be with us every day while they were managing these. And we just had a great childhood. After high school, I went on to college, obviously, and I only got an associate's degree with a paralegal and started my work career. And my first job was in El Paso, Texas. And it was for the court system, not clerks. But at the very young age, I moved back to Arizona, got my first job for the town of Florence. Then that was 1994. And my boss told me, if you want to be a manager someday, if you want to be this, you need to go back to school and get your education. So I went back to school. I went 100% in and decided that I knew who I wanted to be when I grew up, and I was a municipal clerk, and I needed to do everything possible to live that dream.
Oh, this is so cool. Okay, we got to go all the way back to Coos Bay. So
It was
Nicole Rutherford is the current city manager there. She's one of my favorite people. She's an amazing woman. And her story, but she had no idea about local government. She was like working in taxes in the private sector and then needed a job because the mom and pop, tax accountant place was going to close down. They were going to retire. And so she saw an opening at the city, started working there, and they just kept asking her to do more and more. And all of a sudden she's the city manager. So Coos Bay, I need to go down there and visit. So
I was
how what a
places.
yeah, what a cool connection point there. So how cool is this? Your parents move out to Arizona again. You think of Coos Bay, Oregon. It's the West Coast, but it's the Northwest. Which again, I'm in Seattle right now, just south of Seattle in Olympia, the capital city. It's been wet. It's been gray. We just had our fall spring. We always have a fall spring where the sun comes out after months of hibernation of gray and darkness, and we see it, and all the vampires go, "Oh, finally spring." And then it disappears again. It just hoodwinked us. And so it's how was that to move to such a radically different environment in Arizona? No, I mean, you're on the water in Coos Bay and now you're in the desert.
Well, I will tell you, my grandfather got sick, and my father wanted to be by his side. And the family, we've always been family first over anything else. And we moved. And then, when you live in Oregon, you don't think a lot about the rain and the fog and how you can be on the beach in the summer and all of a sudden you're still laying out because it's going to come, the sun's going to come back out. You just got to lay through the rain, right?
That's
You come to Arizona and it's got all this beautiful weather, the sun. We didn't want to go back.
Yes, exactly. I love that you just said that you had this again. I always am interested in the dynamics and kind of the mindsets and the values of people. And you just said family first. It was just kind of like it seems like it was, when your grandfather got sick, it was like, hey, this is an easy decision. We got to go be there. And also in the story of it's one thing to be an entrepreneurial family and to run a business and even to be service oriented. When you run kind of a snowbird RV park, you have, like you said, it's people coming in, they're kind of vacation mode, and yet they're kind of grandparenting you. I'm sure there was a plethora of treats. Every night was s'mores night. What was that like growing up in that environment? And what were you interested in? Were you clear, like you said, paralegals, what you're going to do your undergrad in? Is that kind of what you thought was law? And what was interested? What were you thinking as you were, in high school and kind of thinking about a professional career?
Well, honestly, when I was a kid, when I thought I was going to be something, I wanted to be an oceanographer. I wanted to live by the ocean. I wanted to be in the ocean. But when you're going to school in Arizona, you kind of go through and you start taking classes. And one of the reasons why I kind of let go was because all of my classes that I was taking and what I wanted to do, I'm like, that's not who I wanted to be. I'd taken all these classes. Now I'm to the point to where, I can go be a paralegal, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. And I decided to go live life a little bit and got my first job in El Paso and went that way instead. My first job in Arizona right after school was I worked for a attorney named Richard Clemens, and I did all the divorces and probates for him, and I got paid on a per divorce per probate type thing, $400 for a divorce, $300 for a probate. Show up at the court steps, introduce your attorney to their client, walk through court, file the paperwork, get your paycheck. And I loved it. I loved that too. And so, it didn't work out. He was older, and I decided that I needed to get into some stable job. And I got a job actually for El Paso County for the 243rd District Court. of El Paso County working for Sam Callen, who was the presiding judge. They called him Hanging Sam Callen. And we had quite an experience for about 3 years.
How wild! Again, I love that. I love the journey. That's what's so fascinating. And just to encourage young people, sometimes we think we have to have it all together. We got to have the plan, and I think part of it is life is about the journey. It's about the experience. It's about taking risk, right? El Paso sounds like a risk. Did you have any family there? What was the draw to so far away from where you were at in Arizona?
Um, Adventure, being out on your own, trying something new. El Paso was a very vibrant community. I When I went over there, I'll admit I was too young, I was too naive. I was working in a criminal court system, and I did not recognize the people I was meeting in court when I was out on the street, which made me even seem more naive. And it just got to the point where I needed to find a new career because the person I was didn't fit into that type of environment. I didn't have a strict enough ability to call out danger. I did not have a strict enough ability to um, recall criminals when they're in orange jumpsuits compared to when they're in business clothes on the street. It was an environment where everybody I was meeting either was an attorney, a bailiff, a probation officer, or a criminal.
Oh, wow, what an experience at such a young age. So again, you're kind of finding yourself. You're kind of discovering like maybe this isn't quite the fit for someone like me. Do you come back home then? Is that what leads you back to Arizona? You come back to Arizona, and then how in the world did you end up working for the town of Florence? How did that job come to be?
Well, when my judge called me in and said, "You're so smart, you're so talented, you're going to do such great things. This is just not the right fit for you. You're going to get yourself lost. You can't be kind and nice to the criminals on the outside world. This is not a fit for you." I had to call my dad, and my dad had to come pick me up. And I came back and I lived with my parents until I could find a job. I got a Town of Florence actually had a job open. Put in, came and interviewed for it, and they offered me the job right away. And I started down the path in 1994, trying to come in and make a difference for the community of Florence.
Okay, so it's 1994, and again, you're just looking for a job, right? And I'm sure there's a lot. I mean, would take forever to unpack really all that's probably going through your mind. There's probably, I'm sure, some disappointment having to come back home. Well, like, what am I doing? What's the path? All of a sudden, you're doing, and it's not like you're familiar with municipality and a town, right? So what was it like back then to serve? Maybe give us a view of the town of Florence. How big was it? What was the population? What was it like? You're going to serve as the deputy clerk, and then you're going to become the town clerk 2 years later. So tell us about the initial, like, working as the clerk, and what was attractive about it, and what was kind of the just the eye-opening world of municipality.
Well, I thought when I came over here, it was 35 miles from my house. And they had a requirement that you had to live inside of the city limits. So I needed to find a place to live. And I don't know if you know a lot about Arizona communities, but our community was very small at the time, and we were underneath 20,000. Well, probably we were 15,000, and we probably had 7,000 inmates because we are a prison city to boot. And so, very interesting that houses that I could look to rent were all adobe. There was not new housing starts. There probably hadn't been new housing starts since the 70s in the town. And so it was a very small, very quaint town with historical buildings. Um, my town is the town where Murphy's Romance was filmed. So when you think about Murphy's Romance and they go into the drugstore to have a soda on that beautiful street, that's my street. And so it's like I say it today with the same amount of amazement and pride because my town is just an historical community that is gorgeous. And I just fell in love from the moment I saw it.
Hmm. And so how soon did you realize as you're getting familiar with being a clerk and working for a city, how long did you realize, or when did it kind of come to the realization that I think I can do this? I think I really like this work.
Well, I will tell you that from the moment I stepped into working with the town of Florence, it was like the culture was so fast. I needed to learn so much. There's so much I did not know. I knew how to research, I knew how to find the answers in the era state statutes. I knew how to look up case law to see if there was anything on the books to tell me a direction that I needed to go, but I did not know the fundamentals of being a clerk. And they sent me to an institute. And I walked in on my first day surrounded by this amazing clerk community. And they told me, don't worry, you're not alone. We got this. We're together. Here's our phone numbers. We're going to walk you through every step. And we will make sure that you are lifted so that you can accomplish this. And through my entire career, I have had the amazing ability to be surrounded by clerks. And where if you're winning, we're winning. There's not a competition amongst clerks. It's hey, I've got this great program. Let me give it to you. Maybe you can lift it and tell me and give it back to me. And maybe I can do more here. It's complete sharing, complete trust, and a complete wanting each other to be able to be successful. So we're trying to help mentor, grow, and build at all times. They swoop me right in underneath their wings, and they never let me down once. First time as an adult that I knew I belonged.
That's so cool and it's so powerful. And hopefully we can encourage a young person today that maybe doesn't know what they want to do, is trying to figure it out, or maybe is like, again, you might have a career that you're in and that, it's okay, but maybe it's not, and maybe you're looking for something else. And that's why I love municipalities. Is local gov is so missional, it's so purposeful. You see daily the work that you're doing impact everyday people with the everyday services. Now, a lot of it's taken for granted, right? We just turn on our water, expect our sewer to run, our streets to be smooth. But it's such powerful work. And I love that. You may think, well, I don't have the skills, I don't have the degree, but that's the beauty of municipal work is we train our own. Like they're really, I'm sure, even though you're going to go back to school, you're going to get a undergrad in public administration, you're going to get multiple kind of certificates and degrees. I'm sure you've had multiple training since it, you don't have to have it all figured out. I love
Yeah.
that local gov does continual training and it has a network. So you don't even, no matter, again, you're 30 years in and you still have people that I'm sure you're run into situations where you're like, I don't know what to do here. I'm sure someone over at Phoenix or someone in Scottsdale or Glendale knows they've been through this before. So that's the beauty of it is you don't have to have it all figured out, have a right degree. Just go seek opportunity and I love that. Again, that's why you obviously have been so involved in the associations at a state level to national level because it impacted you so deeply. You become the actual town clerk in 1996. So 2 years in, they're like, hey, let's give you the keys to the kingdom. How did that feel? How was that?
Well, they were actually in a lawsuit and there wasn't a clerk here when I came. And so I stepped into the role, but didn't get the title until the lawsuit settled. And so I didn't know if I was going to be the deputy clerk and the former clerk was going to come back or whether I was going to progress being the clerk. At that time, I just knew that I wanted to do the great things for the town of Florence and I hoped that they wanted me to stay.
Well, you have and you did. It's been an amazing journey. Let's walk through a few things. So, you become the official town clerk in 1996. You're still serving as that today. You become the deputy town manager in 2007, which just adds. It's kind of like one of the things of local gov. Let's give you a fancy title and just basically give you more hats to wear. You are still the clerk. You oversee finance, HR. At the same time, it said in kind of your story, you become a master municipal clerk. Do they give you a lightsaber? What is that about? Tell us about that.
What that means is that I have been through both the institute and the academy. During that time too, I've already gone back. I've already got my degrees. got my certificates in HR through SHRM, got all of that stuff, right? And now I'm functioning on all levels. I understand municipal government. I've been in the seat long enough, and I've done all the required training and hours to be able to have a community know if I am hired that I am a master municipal clerk. And that means that I could walk into basically any municipal clerk job across the United States, and I can figure out how to do it, how to find the laws. Because remember, every state is different, so we all don't operate the same way. And so going, you got to know how to research and how to put things together. And so that's what it's telling people that are senior MMC is that I'm a master municipal clerk, I'm capable, and I understand how to do my job.
May is National Cities, Towns, and Villages Month, which means it's a great time to recognize the people doing the amazing work that keeps our communities running. The work most people rarely see, and if we're honest, hardly ever fully appreciate. It's the work that doesn't slow down, and yet it's the work that's expected to be done day in and day out. Right now, that work is getting a little bit easier. Across local government, teams are finding small but meaningful ways to operate more efficiently, not by replacing people, but by removing the kind of work that pulls them away from what matters most. Things like drafting routine responses, sorting through data, managing workflows that used to take far more time than they should. This is where AI is starting to make a real impact, and Tyler Technologies is helping local governments do exactly that with tools designed specifically for your world, practical, secure, and built to support your team without adding complexity. Tyler has put together a free ebook on AI and efficiency in local government, along with additional resources to help you explore what this could look like in your organization. Find them all at tylertech.com/winter to help you keep doing the work that matters most. That's tylertech.com/winter. Now, back to the conversation. That's awesome. And you do that all, again, this is 10 years in and you're already just rocking and rolling, taking on more. Tell us about, we'll get into, you become a board member of the Arizona Municipal Clerks in 2009. But before that, just this first 10 years of being in Florence, what was it like? What happened over those 10 years? Maybe, Florence is a unique town because you said the prison is there. What was it like being a part of a city? What were some of the things that stretched you? What were some of the things maybe that, like you said, it's every city is kind of run a little bit different, but usually states have, clerks sometimes oversee elections, sometimes that's a county. What were some of the challenges in being a clerk? Open our eyes to understand this role a little bit more. What were those first 10 years like?
Well, we went from being a community where there was, I don't even know what, there weren't typewriters, but you remember they were like typewriters and you would type everything. And then, excuse me, you would type up all your stuff and then you'd push enter and then it would write it on paper. Do you remember those?
Yeah, totally.
Word processors, that's what they were called, word processors. So we had word processors. We had no internet. We were very much trying to get organized. I came in right behind a manager who came in and didn't understand why records were so important. So a clerk also serves as your historian. We care about the records. We want those historical documents. And Florence was actually founded in 1866. So I love my old records. And we had some of those be thrown away. So we were gathering back those documents. We were setting up computer systems. We were realigning our codes to make sure we were acting in best practices within the state statutes, getting those codified and making sure that we come forward with all of the rules and regulations and that we've kept up with the state rules and requirements. So during those times we were forming and we started to grow. We started to get looked at, and by 2005 we had Anthem at Merrill Ranch come in and we really started to take off. And we even got a couple more prisons in town. So we were growing prison is like an industry. And so you've got to have some industry for people to work in to be a town where you can live, work, and play. So it's an environment where people can work really well. We're also the county seat. So we have lots of county and city and school employees. So Florence became rapidly known as the safest city, if not in Arizona, almost across the United States, because of how many government employees were living, working, and playing in our community. And we started to move and groove and get everything down and get everything up to be a state of the art municipality. And that's where we are today as well. We're super thrilled about it.
It's so fascinating to see because again, behind the scenes, people don't, I think people don't understand. Well, it's one thing to take, to take for granted your water and your sewer and all the services that a local government provides. But there's another thing about the identity of a place. And I would imagine, my assumption is that if you are a place where there are prisons, people are, even though people don't think of that as a safe place, it was like, oh, prisons, prisoners, and so, which is funny because like, it's kind of like I remember when I was a kid, Jack in the Box, and I'm sorry to throw Jack in the Box under the table right now or under the wheel, but they always like had an coli outbreak every like 3 years, and people were like, "Oh, Jack in the Box." But what's funny is they always said, the safest place to eat is probably a restaurant that just went through a national crisis like that because it's
Right.
like all hands on deck to make things awesome. And I wonder, like, again, you might think, oh, it's a place of prisons, who would want to live there? But again, you're one of the safe, like you said, safest places in America. Like, you have to, a local government does a lot of work behind the scenes through all their departments: economic development, parks, emergency services, festivals, all the stuff that you provide to make a place identity, to have a place of who you are, and and to have create a positive spin. And people don't, I think, understand the work that local government does to do that. And it sounds like you guys really threw gasoline on the fire to make that happen.
Well, what we did was we went in and we made sure that we had all the right people in the right seats, and we started to lift for the town of Florence. Everything we do, the reason why we exist is to serve the citizens. So we really took every effort to make Florence a better place. And sometimes people wouldn't know that governance equals making sure your records are properly managed, making sure your agendas properly managed, making sure your elections come out on time and are well advertised. Um, but in the end of the day, it does make it a better place to live. And transparency in local government is key to understanding the why, how your taxpayer dollars is spent, and what's going to happen next. If you're paying attention, you can see the roadmap and you can watch us go and grow.
It's so true. And it's one of the things, let's highlight just the unique role that a city clerk plays. You've said a couple things now, but I want to highlight them. It's the records keeper, the historian. I love that because I love history. I'm just a history, like if I can read anything, it's usually history. And I love learning about places, about cities. And they're, like you said, 1800s is when it's formed. How cool. And it's not just a story, but also as a city is formed and as it functions, there's policies, there's things that are set up, and then there's state policy, there's federal policy. Someone has to be the arbiter to make sure everyone is right. We're staying above board, we're not going to get sued, or we're not going to be in non-compliancy. And so in the city clerk, that seems to fall on the clerk to make sure of a lot of that. And like you say, records, if people come in and they want transparency, they want to look at things, it's the clerk who oversees a lot of that to make sure. Talk about the weight of it. It seems like there's a cool opportunity because you get to see. What's cool is, like, again, you put together oftentimes the meeting minutes for the council for those meetings. So you kind of get to see all the departments and what they're up to, which is kind of unique because local government can be a place where it's very siloed. You've got emergency response doing their things. You've got economic development doing their thing, et cetera. But you kind of get a view of everything going on, but you also have to then make sure. You can probably feel like you're herding cats sometimes to get everyone to get their stuff in and everyone communication. What tell us a little bit about this unique role as a city clerk. What are some of those really cool opportunities, the things that you get to do, and what are some of the challenges? What are some of the things that that make it hard to make the work a little challenging?
I will tell you, you're absolutely right, because clerks get invited to so many subcommittees and so many ad hoc committees because if there's a policy that's being drafted, there's a clerk involved. We're helping. If an ordinance or a resolution is being written, we're usually somewhere in that stream. And as you're going through and you're putting your agenda items in the town of Florence, clerks also build the agendas. We track the ordinances, we track the resolutions. We run the policy committee. And so everything comes through our fingertips. So we not only understand all the projects that are going on, at what point they're going to go to council and get get approved, and when their funding is going to kick in. And by doing that, we can step into most departments and assist with projects, assist with help. So part of how I became the deputy manager is every time there was a project, every time there was a function happening that was new, whether it was SLIDs, whether it was community facilities districts, if I didn't know about it, I said, "Ooh, I want on that committee. I need to learn that. I need to learn this. I haven't heard about that. Let me in the door. I want to learn." And the more you learn and the more you show you're capable, the more they will allow you to do. More hats you're allowed to put on your head, and the more valuable you get to a community, the more you understand. And I have the philosophy, when I know something, I'm going to share it with everyone because knowledge is power, and the power should be equally shared. It shouldn't be a tool to use against people. It should be something to share with people so that we are lifting together to make the community a better place.
I love that. And I love it. Again, you can see, I think it's a common theme about of the people I interview that are just all stars. They have two things. They are learners, lifelong learners, and they just have a posture of curiosity. Like they're just curious and they say yes to opportunities. Oh, there's something new to learn. Oh, there's something I can be a part of. They're just always saying yes. And I do think whether it's private sector, public sector, it's one of the things when things get in local government, it's kind of known it's bureaucratic, it's red tape, it's slow. And I think it can be if you don't have that posture of like, no, let's learn, let's share, and that's like you said before, there's not really competition. It's not like it's Amazon versus Walmart. It's not like Florence is working against, Maricopa. It's like, how can we learn together? How can we all, like, our city is going to be unique. Florence is unique because Florence has aspects to it that no one else has. And so it can be unique. And then you guys are trying to make it, unique. You're trying to make it a place where whether you live there, work there, play there, that it's awesome for you. And I think that's the important thing is how do you do that? How do you stay inside local gov? How do you stay curious? How do you stay passionate about the work that you're doing? It seems like that's one of your just it radiates across the screen. You seem like a passionate person who really loves what you do. And how maybe talk about, has there, again, I would imagine in 30 years, there's been moments where it's been trying. There's been moments where it's been like you've had challenge, where you've hit a wall, where there's been a project or something that really, right? How maybe give some insight to someone who's struggling right now. They're a clerk, maybe they're a municipal employee, a leader, and they're just trying to either find passion or just work through some of the challenges that you guys face. Maybe that's the unique world of municipalities too, is especially right now. Maybe we'll get into this later, but just the culture of incivility right now, the flow down from federal to state to, local government. I love it because it's the government of the people. It impacts people on a daily basis. The most, I think, seen of all government structures and entities, but everything flows down to local government too. And that can be hard. That can be challenging. Maybe speak to some of that. What are some of the challenges that you've been through, and what do you find to work through those?
Well, I've always been a type of person that if there's a challenge, then it means it's more interesting. And so it's if things just run along and they're just smooth, then it's kind of like that's great too. But really to go back in and to have a little bit of a challenge, to be able to have a little bit of risk, that's awesome. And so I usually just make sure that if I'm uncertain, I do a lot of research. If I know someone who's an expert, I will reach out and I will talk to them. I also deep dive to look for news articles about other communities that may have lived through it. And it's so great to have all the council meetings online now, right? So if I see a community that's going through something that we're doing and they're navigating the waters before us, I'm actually watching their council meetings. I'm reading their legislation. I'm engaging with them. When California had well, who was it? It was they had a community that went out and we were using Zoom. It was during COVID. We're using Zoom. We're all working from home and we are just trying to make everything fit. And hackers went in and took over the Zoom and they started chanting things and singing and doing all these things. And so we're like, wow, what are we going to do? How are we going to work this? How are we going to make sure that this doesn't happen here? So we start engaging. We also watch the lawsuits that come from it happening and from it not being controlled. And because when the council went back to address the situation, they didn't apologize to the citizens. So the citizens felt compelled that the council was not engaged and they got involved. And so, really taking the steps for not only what protocols need to be placed for safety, but also in what needs to happen in order to make sure that you're engaging with the community so that they understand you're working on it and you're trying to get through these new times. For us, we didn't have online meetings until COVID happened. I mean, super threw us in to an advanced level to where public meetings were now accessible to all, which was a really good thing for local government. We stayed there. So now all of our meetings are Zoomed, all of our work sessions are Zoomed. We now offer call to the public at the beginning of the meeting, call to the public at the end of the meeting. We want full engagement. We're here for you. Come talk to us type of mentality. But without going through those things, we would not have done it. The other thing is that we saw some real citizens get angry in other communities, rush stages, um, want to actually follow council members out to the cars. Again, not in Florence, but engage with them. Somebody followed a council member home in another state. And so civility in local government is something that we are super concerned about. In the state of Arizona, they actually added a section to the executive sessions. The reason why council can go into executive sessions, they added security. They added security to one of those reasons. And the reasons why is because if you've got a plan, if you're going to have an active shooter, you've got to be able to have a plan set for how everybody's going to depart. And that cannot be made public. And everything local government does is in public. We make the sausage in public. We eat the sausage in public. It's all done in public. So having those reasons to go in, and all of those were real threats. And we say that it's a trickle down from our federal government, which I truly believe that. But being on an international stage, what was so crazy is that trickle down not only happened to local government in the United States, it happened to local government around the globe. And I have a friend who is in IIMC. She works for SLCC and she's over in the UK. And she led an initiative to bring back civility in local government. And we love it. And we're hoping to bring back a similar ordinance and resolution.
It's so important because I just actually talked to a previous city manager this morning about somebody. He didn't write a book. Someone else has written a book on civility, and just like it is a dominant topic right now because and that's one of the things I was going to ask you. You've been through. The 2008 housing crisis. You went through COVID. All those times, I'm sure, had dynamic resident engagement, council conflict. Anytime budget, local governments are always kind of crying about budget, but those are some times when, everything changed. Like, what in the world are we doing? And yet it seems now, here we are, 2026. Okay, we're past the pandemic, and yet the incivility has only increased. It's just a wild time. And maybe you can speak to, you've seen both technology. You talked about, typewriters to word processors to Zoom, and now we've got AI we're trying to figure out how to use. So you've got this technical, physical aspect of change that you've been a part of, but there's also the emotional aspect, right? I remember when I was a kid, we just had the astronauts go to the moon. right? As we're recording this. I remember as a kid, I grew up in the Challenger space. We all watched that Challenger blow up like in kindergarten or first grade, whatever it was. We were sitting in class, watching it on the TV. I mean, it was traumatic, but it felt like this was us. Like we're Americans. This was our thing. Now it's like, I don't really hear that with this space exploration. Everything's a conspiracy. We don't really go to the moon. We don't, and it's just culture has changed. And it's not just an American thing, like you said, it's global impact. There's something going on where there's a lack of trust. There's a hyper assumption to conspiracy. There's almost a push towards like a negative disposition. I was talking to somebody about Winnie the Pooh and the characters on Winnie the Pooh. It's kind of like an Eeyore slash kind of the rabbit. The rabbit's kind of a pessimist on everything, and it's kind of like we've lost something there. And so, what do you think? Have you seen that again? As technology has developed, is the emotional realities of how we engage as residents, how we engage our even our council? Any wisdom, any insights there? How do you think local government can help that when it's not like you can go have a meeting with every resident? Like, again, you're doing the things like Zoom and communication, but how do we help with that? What's local government's responsibility, and what do you see as a clerk? How do you wrestle with some of that?
I'll say that it's hard because every situation is different. If you think about it, when people come to local government, everyone wants something. And usually it's a very personalized reason for coming. So they're coming in with preconceived notions before they ever get to our doorsteps. So one of the things that we like to do is we put on a leadership academy here, and we make sure that everybody understands how government runs, why they run, and we love to have people come through our leadership academy. When we're doing elections, we put on leadership academies, and we say, whether you're running for election or not, come down, join. The more people we have that understand local government, the better off we are, the better off they are. Understanding where to have your needs met is very important. And even making sure that kids that are graduating, we run a teen council, and we make sure that they understand how government is run as well, because it will serve them well their whole life long. But so say you have a citizen that's coming in because they live on a road and it's too small. There's too much growth. The road that the transportation hasn't kept up, because you know that transportation dollars have been dwindling for years. They went to electronic cars, didn't replace the how we get our money for vehicles, right? Or transportation for our roads. We were getting it from vehicles. And so we have all these things. So people come in and they have a real problem. So we find if we can go back and we can explain the how, the why, and how it's going to work, that will sometimes get them to understand and give us more time to have it done. But the real problem is that they sit in their home, they hear the highway. When they get up at work, they go out on the street. And if you don't have change and they don't know when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, then they start to get upset that you're not taking care of their needs. So having a plan in place, a CIP in place that you can pull out and show them this is slotted to go in year 3. This is when the funding comes on. Having all those tools that we have as municipal government leaders and being able to show them and teach them where to look and how to track it. And then making sure municipal government, we don't celebrate a lot with our communities, right? It's like we're getting everything done, we're getting it accomplished, and then we're moving on to the next task. But going back and announcing and making sure that we're announcing, hey, this project was just done. If you haven't seen it, it's done. We said we were going to do it. Now we did it. It's that proof is in the pudding kind of attitude, that if you're continually saying what you're going to do and then doing it, then you can get more buy-in, more belief. But if for some reason you say something and it doesn't end up coming to be true, now they've got their grounding, and now it makes all of their conspiracies be accurate in their mind, right? So changing that message, keeping up with that message, and making sure that the dynamics stay there in our communications.
So,
And communications is the easiest thing, and it's the one thing we all get wrong,
so
right? You're so good at it. But the rest of us, we stay in our office hoping everybody knows what we're doing, and we need to say more, not less, to our citizens.
After more than 325 episodes with local government leaders and thousands of conversations on stages and workshops across North America, there is one pattern I keep seeing, regardless of the size, the structure, or even the budget of the organization. The people who are the most technically skilled are often the ones we are promoting into leadership. But then we expect those technical skills to translate. But let's be honest, leading people is a completely different job, a completely different reality. It's like learning a foreign language. When that gap isn't addressed, it shows up everywhere. In communication and accountability, in the very cultures we are trying to create, build, and sustain. And it shows up in the weight those new leaders now have to carry every day. That's exactly why I created the Municipal Leadership Development Circle, or for short, what we call the MLDC. It was built specifically for local government leaders who were promoted for their skills, but never fully prepared to lead people. If you are feeling that gap, or if you're seeing it on your team, in a department, now is the time to address it. Learn more and schedule a conversation at HaltingWinter.com/MLDC. That's HaltingWinter.com/MLDC, or simply use the link in the show notes. Now, back to the conversation. Absolutely. I think you just mentioned two things I'll highlight again. Yes, we have to get better at storytelling. And again, it feels like, and I get it, it's like, well, we don't want to brag, or we don't want to. I think that's kind of the issue with local gov. All these local government leaders that I interview, and I predominantly interview city managers and county administrators, like the top of the top. And yet I have to pull teeth to get them on the podcast because they're like, oh, it's not about me. And I'm like, but this is why no one knows this job exists. Like, we got to make a big deal about this because what you do is awesome. And I think that's part of the thing. And you are so busy. Local government has so many projects going on. It's always juggling. It's always trying to, as soon as you finish something, it's not like you're bored twiddling your thumbs. You got more to do. And so it can be one of the reasons why we forget to tell the story. We know about it. We've been working on it for years, but the people don't. They don't see it. And so, yeah, how do we tell better stories? But I love what you said. You have a leadership academy. And I think it's one of the drums I pound is these citizenship academy, leadership academy, you got to bring them in and show them. And I think it's inspiring. It's inspiring to go, I had no idea it took all that work and all that knowledge to deliver my water, or to treat my sewer, or to, how expensive it is to lay down asphalt. I mean, I can't imagine in Arizona with the sun just beating the living daylights out of it. Like, infrastructure costs crazy amounts of money. And so when we complain about our taxes, okay, but do you want to go back to Stagecoach and Bunny on the gravel, on the dirt road with, no, of course not. Like, and yet we just don't know, because you live in the modern world, you're just entitled to live, right? You kind of expect it to be awesome. And so, yeah, how do we tell better stories? Talk for a minute about, again, you've been a part of leadership at the Municipal Clerk Association in the state level for Arizona, but also the International Institute. Talk about, it's one thing to be a part and to be a member. Like you said, even as you were a young clerk, you were able to really benefit from that community. What was it like to lead on it, to be a board member, to be the president of it? Give us some insight into that world. That's such a unique opportunity. I had on Benjamin Bitten. He's the president for the City Managers Association in Arizona. I love him. He's such a great person, and what a kind, just gracious spirit. Love his mentality. Talk about what is it like to serve in that. Again, it's not like you're not a busy person. You're the city clerk of a growing, flourishing city. How in the world do you do that on top of it?
Well, I will tell you, and it's so fun. It's so fun to go in and to be a part of something different, because we have such a government hat on, right? And so when we step over and we are now working for our association, we're actually stepping into the role of a 503c6. So all of a sudden, we're having to unlearn everything we've done, right? There's no open meeting law when you're working in a 503c6. You don't have to do all these things that we normally do. And sometimes we get stuck in our ways and we bring all this red tape that we don't need to bring in, right? So I think that each person who steps into that role, one, they have a great love for the people that they serve with, and they've seen other leaders give. And there comes a time when all those who gave before that lifted each one of us, that we have to pay our bill at the end too. And so getting in, doing the work, doing the hard work, being mentors, sharing the knowledge and making sure the next generation is ready. That's what it's about. But also the fiscal assurance that your association is in a good place, has good rules, and has the legs to be able to stand on its own for years and years to come, and to be able to have youth and young people that are coming in as a 21-year-old clerk, a 24-year-old clerk. How is what engaged me as the person who's now the little old lady in the room? How does what engages me and what I love? How am I going to change that mindset to have it to where someone so much younger than me is going to come on and they're going to have the same passion for not only their communities, for the clerks, and for the 503c6 that we need to have survived this. And it's a scary situation when you start thinking about how we're all different, how we need to come in there. When I started serving our clerks association in Arizona, we had been through a very hard time. We had actually had somebody who embezzled from us. We were actually going through and trying to get our money back, and at the same time, being told that stain shouldn't be on Arizona. So, as clerks who always do the right thing, we were having a hard time of comprehending the decisions that were being made for us and restructuring so that this could never happen to us again. And I felt very compelled to be involved, to be able to make sure that we had the rules, the regulation, and the professional help to be able to make sure we were stable and make sure we were sound for the future.
Mm.
And so my leadership role came on the edge of disaster, and they have been doing great ever since. We've had tremendous leaders that have grown, shaped, lifted us farther up than I could have ever imagined. It's like, when you go back and you look at, ooh, I used to do that. I'm the past for that association. And you look at where they have come. It's just amazing pride, amazing love, and amazing respect for all those who have led after I've led.
Again, back to your story, it made such an impact on you early on in your career to be able to be able to lead and be a part of the storm, and so that it now is still there. It's still having that dynamic impact. How that those are the moments, I think, that make us feel the worth and value, right? They go, this is why we
Mhm.
do the work. I love that. And and then you become again a regional director for the IIMC. What was that? What was it like? Because tell us about the regional directors at multiple states, I would imagine. What was?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So in IIMC, I was Region 8. And at that time, I had 11 states that I was responsible for sharing information to, visiting, making sure they were set up, making sure that they were ready to go. And during my time as a Region 8 director, we had the most states of any other region. And so, in the United States, at least. And so I ran a committee to be able to go in and do a constitutional amendment to separate our states. So now there's 7 in one, there's 6 in another, and so we don't have such the weight on our shoulder when you're a Region 8 director. It's an easier lift now, but it was super exciting. It was super scary to be on a board and have so many. You feel like, ooh, I'm from the little town of Florence, and I'm going to meet all these international people, all these big city people, and I'm going to sit at the table and lead with them. Just, I can't think of a more intimidating moment than I've had in my journey of learning if I could sit at the table and keep my own and make sure that I was producing for my clerk community of what I needed to produce. And so I was scared.
I bet. And yet you rock and roll it enough to become the president in 2024. But before we get to that, I want to ask a question from my naivety is I would imagine, it's one thing to be a part of the Arizona Municipal Clerks Association. And so then you're kind of, even though you're on the same state and probably there's a lot of the similarities, then you kind of go, oh, there's different towns, different cities operate in kind of some different ways. You kind of get your eyes open. I would imagine regional director of multiple states, like you said, the most at that one time. What was that like to go, you operate this way? Like that must have been kind of mind blowing to see how clerks run in different states.
It was mind blowing. I remember my first conference that I went to where I had to speak. It was in Colorado. And it was at the time when Colorado just had marijuana become legal. And my whole life is like, marijuana, that's illegal. What are you doing? And so I'm sitting in all these classes learning about marijuana, learning how it transfers and how it becomes revenue. It's like, you go in and go, oh my gosh, wow. When I went to New Mexico, I remember going in and going, oh, their laws are really strict on records. It's really hard on the clerk. They're not forgiving at all. They have to produce immediately. And there's consequences to their actions if they don't fulfill it. Oh my gosh, their role is so hard. And in every community I went to where I learned their role, I thought, oh my gosh, it's so different. It's so hard what they're doing. And look at them, look how capable they are and how amazing they are. And so you're right. It's every state has different rules. Every city and every town within those states have different laws that are local, and these clerks have to know them all.
Amazing,
It's
amazing people. Okay, so then you're going to serve as the regional director for I think 3 years or so, and then you become the president. What was it like? Again, you're like, I don't even know if I can do this regional director. I feel like these shoes are huge. You become the president, and this is International Institute. It's like the ICMA is the one with city managers, the international, and they go all over the world. I'm sure it's the same thing. You're all over the world. What in the world was that experience like? That just seems amazing.
Well, you roll in as your first year, you're vice president, then you're the incoming president. So, for 2 years, they're setting the stage for you. You're getting to understand it. You're getting to learn what the other presidents are doing. What are they saying? Why are they building in such a way? And the great thing about it is that we have a 28 member board, and it is the policies, procedures of that board that we are out there being spokespeople for. So we're talking about why join IIMC. If you think about it, we have 15,000 members, 5,000 of them are internationally. But if you think about how many cities, towns, burgs in the country that there are just in the United States, we're missing a large portion of them that are not members. So that means they're not members, they're not certified, and they possibly have not heard about us yet. And we'd love to engage them. We would always love for them to be involved with us. We want to spread the knowledge as much as we can and lift every city in the United States to have more. Professional clerk brings transparency, brings order, and really understands how to weave through a lot of political dramas as well. And so they're great to have on board with you. So really just trying to promote IIMC, make sure that people understand what a clerk is. You so it's so funny. We were talking about municipal clerks. While you're the president, you're going out and you're really celebrating Municipal Clerk Week with all the other states and all the other countries. And while you're there, you can get people who ask you questions, citizens who ask you questions, like a clerk at Circle K, like a cashier. And it's like, no, that's not it. And then a lot of people will say, well, should we change our names to like an administrator name versus the clerk? But if you think about it, the clerk is the oldest profession in municipal government, and we are a statutory. So think about how much of that history we would give up by not being the clerk. I, for one, am very proud of that title. And I loved going around and celebrating with all the other cities, states, and countries about what it is to be a clerk.
And that's what I have felt that I've had the pleasure of doing, speaking for a variety of different clerk conferences, is just to encourage them to say, I think it's an easy default, an easy assumption to go, oh, clerk, it's kind of a glorified, secretary. You guys are so much more than that. You guys are valid, not just leaders, but I mean, like you say, this is an institutional reality of our towns, villages, cities, boroughs, etc. This is a needed necessity, and you guys are a key position for the thriving and flourishing of our places, of our communities. It's just, again, how would we, when I was out in Kentucky last year, I met with Ashley Jackson. She was the president of the Kentucky Association. Kathy Walker was a regional director. I think she's a regional director right now. Just these amazing people,
Yeah.
right? And it's just like, these are just so great. I love sharing these stories. What would you, yes, there's the instructional learning aspect that these organizations give you. There's the relationships that you form, especially I like what you just said, that when you go through the heat, that's a thing. Like if you're in local government, you're going to go through some heat. And it's having encouragement, but the insight to be able to do that, to be able to persevere through that. What would you say to the person who goes, I don't know if I have the time, I don't know if the investment's worth it? What would you your quick pitch to them? Why does it matter to really be a part of the IIMC?
One, your CMC comes from the IMC, your MMC comes from the IMC. That's the Master Municipal Clerk. There's nothing that's more powerful to be able to come across to your community that you are qualified to do your job than to have your certifications. But more so, it is, like you said, the amazing people that are around you, they lift you. And when you're with a group of 15,000 people that you end up knowing almost every one of them, you've got someone to help you no matter where you are. And could you imagine having 50, 60 years of experience with collaboratively talking to people and having them guide your career, guide your situation? When something does go wrong in a community, the one thing you don't want to do is you want to talk about it locally. You don't want to talk about it locally. Sometimes clerks are very, very close to the vest because you think if you say it out loud, you're giving it life and you're going to breathe life into it. So making sure that you feel safe in your connections where you can ask for some advice, get some quality instructions. Clerks are so great. They'll even send you all your materials. So it really helps you go through those moments. There's nothing better to be with like-minded people who understand where you've been, they know where you're going, and they support you on your way. To be mentored by people who truly love their communities and love their profession. Oh my gosh, I had chills right now because there's a difference. You can be mentored by somebody who thinks it's a job, or you can be mentored by somebody who thinks that they're making the world a better place to live. I want to be mentored by the person who wants to make the world a better place to live.
So good.
And I think that's what clerks bring to the table and to each other.
It's so good. I usually end by talking about work-life balance and how I think work-life balance is BS. There's just intention. What do you give intention to? And one of the reasons I bring it up with local government leaders is because it like you said, it's a passionate work. You love what you do. And so that means then, and the reality is the city never sleeps and there's always work to be done. So it can become so dominant that then I always say kind of in the model of servant leadership, that you can sacrifice your life on the altar of that service to an unhealthy degree. And I think that that's one of the reasons I'm such an advocate of your state and your national, international associations, is because they put opportunities on your calendar to go to the conferences, to get out of the office, to get around some people where it's a safe place to vent, to learn, to share, to just build relationship. You need that because, and that's the kind of the biggest excuse. Oh, I don't have the time. You need to make the time because your city will, two things. You'll always have an excuse of work, too much work to do. That's not a good excuse. The second thing is, and again, you have worked now for 3 decades and you have had amazing impact. And yet there's going to come a day, probably 3 decades from now, when you'll retire. And the reality is someone will replace you and you will one day be forgotten. And that's just the reality of human existence. And that's not a bad thing. That's just the reality is things move forward, right? A city outlives all of us. And so while you do something impactful, don't be so foolish to then not invest in yourself, invest in a relationship. But like you say, it's not just for you. I always said, as a pastor for a number of years, and I always told people, because we always encourage people to be a part of these small groups, people met in homes and just did life together. And I said, make that a priority, not just because of, oh, well, I'm not going to go, I don't need to be fed. I don't need that. And it's like, but people missed your engagement. Right. It's the same thing when you go to these things, like you were able to glean all those relationships and all that wisdom. And now you poured back. You were a board member, president, regional director, president. Like it's a two-way street of receiving and giving. And that's when life flourishes, I think. I always found that when I could teach, when I could mentor, those were actually even more like inspiring moments than even some of the big projects I worked on. And so just to encourage you, wherever you're at in your career, if you're in local government, the associations are great places to not only learn to build relationships, but to give back and to really have impact outside of your town, outside of your city. Will you tell us what is the size of Florence now? Again, you mentioned it was about 15,000. What is it now?
We shrunk. We had a prison close. And so we have shrunk down to about 25,000.
Shrunk down. Wow, 15,000, and then you shot up, and now you're back to 25,000. But it's interesting, isn't it? The life of a city, and that's why it always has this fluidity to it, which means there will always be unique opportunities to continue to, it's not like there are these static things. In fact, once your city's static, it's probably dying. I don't believe there's anything that's static. And growth doesn't always mean bigger. It means there's different opportunities, and maybe a close of a prison. People can think, I do a lot of work with cities that the mine closed or the mill closed. It's like, what are we going to do? And it's like, I think it's a cool time to rethink, like, who are we and what do we want to do and what do we want to be?
And the prison that closed was a territorial prison. It's actually, I've been in it, I viewed it. Right now it's off limits because it has the death house within it. One of the most beautiful structures, if you like historic buildings, one of the most beautiful structures with all of the original doors and how all the cells work. I'm hopeful that it'll be a great museum and an attraction someday that will bring people to Florence to want to visit. Tourism is a great opportunity.
Yes. And that's, again, it's the creative thinking to go, this is just what's the next iteration of its life. How can we use it? Whether that's a museum, whether I just talked to someone the other day who, again, some huge warehouse that the company left and either left or shut down. I can't remember what it was. It's like, what do we do with, tens of thousands of square footage? We dream. We have all this, opportunity now to dream and to think. It's so cool. What a great story, Lisa. So much to glean from your insights and from your life, and just you. You have such a great view of life, a great personality, a great drive, and that's what we want. That's what I want to see more in local government. People like you just doing great work. You're passionate about it. You're driven by it. What would you say to a young person to encourage them? Maybe they don't know what they want to do. Maybe they've never even thought about local government. What would you say to encourage them towards the possibility of a career in local gov?
I would say that when you join local government, it is more than a job. It is a true calling because every one of your citizens that you have, you're trying to build something for them. When you open up a park and you have a groundbreaking and you do a ribbon cutting and you invite everybody to, you can see the joy and you can see you're making a real difference. And yeah, when we're operating on all cylinders, you might not know that we exist, but that's us behind the scenes every day, making life a better place. And to make true impact in lives, it happens at the local level. We're the ones you can talk to. We're the ones that are going to listen, and that we're the ones that want to make a difference. And so if you've ever had a calling to want to be more and do more, join local government. It is a great place to be. I would say one thing that my very first boss, when I moved into local government, told me, he said, every day sit down and write your resignation. On your anniversary date, sit down and write your resignation. Write your resignation and tell the citizens how much you've enjoyed doing for them. and why you enjoy working here, and what did you miss out on doing in your career. After you get the red letter written, tear it up, refocus your energy, and why haven't you accomplished the things on your list that you wanted to promise them? That's your fire. Get it going. You've got to do these things for this amazing community you serve. Let's do it.
Oh, I love it. Such great advice to our young people, but also to current people serving who need to reignite the fire. Write your resignation letter and what you missed out on, and then rip it up and get to work. Get after those things that matter, right? Oh, it's so good. Oh, so many good insights. Lisa, thank you for sharing your life, your leadership journey, all that's going on. Anything else you'd leave us with?
Jess, it's been an incredible journey. I believe in succession planning. I have 2 amazing deputy clerks, and they're both going to have their MMCs really shortly, and they're going to do amazing things in the clerk community. And if we're not sharing our passion, if we're not making sure that we're lifting those behind us, then we're allowing grains of sand to fall beneath our fingers, and we cannot do that to the world. We must lift. And so please make sure you're doing succession planning and give some love to your clerk today.
I love it. Thank you, Lisa. Lisa Garcia, what an amazing journey. What an amazing story. What an amazing life and amazing impact. Thank you for sharing it with us today.
Thank you.
The stories we share here on the Halting Winter podcast remind us where government really lives, locally, right here in our cities, our counties, the communities that shape our everyday life. If today's conversation resonated with you, please subscribe and share the episode to help these stories reach others. I'm Seth Winterhalter. You can find me at HaltingWinter.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.